Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I will be discussing my reasoning for why I believe that Brandon Sanderson's The Reckoners trilogy should be made into a movie trilogy. There are several points that I think make it so that this would serve as an excellent and refreshing movie trilogy compared with all of the other superhero sci-fi movie trilogies of the type. The first thing that I will say that is going for this series is that it was extremely popular. Each book in the trilogy was a #1 New York Times best-selling book, and they have been incredibly popular. So popular, in fact, that Brandon Sanderson has started some extra novels that he is working on with some other authors that have been coming out recently. I cannot wait till those come in print because I'm very excited to read all of them. However, this trilogy is not just popular, I think it's very good. What I believe makes this trilogy stand out is that the Reckoners trilogy is much more of a family-friendly trilogy than, say, its counterparts that have the same premise, such as The Boys. The Boys is much more R-rated and is much more made for adults. But what makes this trilogy so great is that, yes, the superheroes are really villains because of their superpowers, and the regular people don't have superpowers. But what makes this so refreshing is that your main character and all of the other main characters are good and decent people. They are characters you want to emulate. This is not an anti-hero we are dealing with. I found that the main character in this series, David, is relatable. I found that him and all the other characters from the series were some types of characters that I would want my family to see on the big screen. There are some movies and books where I'm like, I don't want people I know to see that because these are just terrible people. But that is not the case. The good guys in this book series are really good, and it is so refreshing to see that. There is another reason why I think this would make a good film trilogy, is because I believe that this would not be crazy expensive to produce. You know, as movies get more and more expensive, your blockbusters are costing $150, $170, $200 million. Sometimes, like Endgame costs $300 million or more to produce. They're expensive movies that we have to produce now. But this trilogy, I believe that it can be done in such a way that does not require such expensive effects. One of the advantages is that most of this trilogy takes place on the ground in the middle of city. You know, the first book takes place in Chicago, and the second book takes place in something like New York. These types of cities that you'd have to build sets because these aren't cities as we know them now, but it would not require otherworldly sci-fi, fantasy, crazy, epic, huge set pieces to design. At the same time, I believe that utilizing something such as the volume, which Disney is using with their Mandalorian and other spin-offs, and then you have other companies such as Paramount is co-opting that concept for their Discovery series. I think that you could use a similar type of technology that would allow you to do the few big action scenes and big scope scenes without having to spend too much on a crazy budget. Another reason that it would keep budget down is that this is a type of trilogy where a lot of the main characters are really young, and you wouldn't have to pay exorbitant amounts to actors. There isn't a huge cast in this trilogy. It is a very small cast, so you can get some great actors, some A-list, top-tier actors who can do superhero and also just do character moments. At the same time, they'll bring in a lot of money, and they'll bring a lot of attention and fame to the series. And I think that would be a very good asset, is how few actors you would need. And then another aspect of the series that I just think would be really good for its financials is that the action itself is not overly fantastical. There are moments in the second and third book, and even, I would say, towards the end of the first book, that have some really CGI-heavy action scenes. But compared to the CGI action required in the Marvel movies or the DC movies, those types of superhero action movies, I don't think it's quite necessary to have all of that on the same level. And as a result, I think that it would keep the costs down. I don't know everything about movie making, so I can't speak to all the behind the scenes, but I would guess that you could make a movie trilogy like this for only $100 million. And while this trilogy, each film would be $100 million. I don't think you could do the whole trilogy for $100 million, but each film could be $100 million, I would assume. And if you did it that way, the films wouldn't need to make huge amounts of money. They wouldn't have to make $1 billion to be profitable, or even, $600 million. I think that they could be profitable after making about $300 million on that case. And I think that the books turning into films could easily make that number. And they would help boost Brandon's name into more fandoms and get him more readers, which I think would be advantageous. And the third reason that I think that this trilogy should be adapted, and I think that this one is the most core, the best reasoning as a whole, is that this trilogy promotes themes about: should we seek revenge? Should we seek mercy? Should we seek forgiveness? It asks questions about how far are you willing to go to bring someone back from an evil point in their lives. And there's particularly one moment where you find out that a character in the book, it turns out to be evil, and our main character, David, basically pursues to try to bring that person back, and it just has some amazing themes. That theme of redemption, of going into the belly of the beast to rescue someone from it, is a fantastic theme, and it is becoming more and more lost in today's culture. And I think that this trilogy handles it. It's not cheesy in any way. It's very... There's some cheesy moments in the books, but it's not cheesy. It would be so sweet and so refreshing in today's society. Imagine a superhero trilogy that takes the traditional superhero tropes, but doesn't have the language, doesn't have the sexuality, doesn't have the bad elements that so many of our modern superhero movies have. And that is why I believe that the entire Reckoners trilogy, you have Steelheart the first book, Firefight the second book, and Calamity the third book, I think that this trilogy would make an excellent film trilogy. So, if you've read this trilogy, what do you think? Do you think they could do it under a manageable budget? Do you think that they should use something like the volume? Do you think it should not be a trilogy, instead be made into a TV series, something a la The Flash, which I don't think it would work that well, but let me know your comments down below. Please subscribe to the channel. Please hit the like button, and you can find my Goodreads account. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.